This video will contain spoilers from the off, so remember, you've been warned. Ted Lasso is over, and the character and club that we've grown extremely attached to over the years is now complete, for now at least anyway. With there being talks of a spin-off, who knows, the show could make some kind of comeback. The finale to the show was extremely powerful and the ending was perfect, for every single one of the characters, which is rare to find. Within the finale, there was one moment in the episode that was so artistically crafted and was designed in a way to draw emotion out of us and highlight that Ted's mind was made up and that the show was over. It was the scene where Rebecca and Ted were in the stadium during the evening, so I thought it would be worth breaking down and explaining one of the most powerful moments in the entirety of the finale and discussing how 7 words made such an impact. So let's get into it. Here is why this Ted Lasso moment was so powerful in the finale. Just to let you know, this video will contain spoilers. I'm going to break this video down into a couple of different sections. The importance of Ted not speaking. Throughout this scene, as it played out, Ted quite literally only said 7 words. 3 words in one sentence and then 4 in another. 4 of them were unrelated to the main discussion point that was taking place, but the first 3 held such importance. Ted never initiated the conversation, and he only ever responded. He didn't even ask Rebecca to sit down next to him in his friendly manner. He just pulled down the seat and tapped it. Ted is a character that is always the first to speak up, speak out, and look to find an answer if there's something that's going on. However, on this occasion, he just let Rebecca speak. It was a deliberate choice by the creators to have him not respond to Rebecca as she was pleading for him to stay, and saying that she would essentially sell the club if he were to leave. Rebecca offered up idealistic fantasy scenarios where he could stay and how he could ultimately view where he was now as home, saying how he could bring Henry over and also highlighting how Michelle could teach and become the head of a department, painting an ideal world where Ted could be happy in the UK. But in reality, it was far beyond that. Ted choosing not to speak was him essentially saying that he'd made up his mind and that he was ready to go home. He didn't just miss being with his son, he missed being home. Being in the States where his whole life was before he moved, the place where he grew up, and the place where he also lost his father. He spent the entirety of the season wanting nothing else, and there was nothing that could have been said by Rebecca that was going to change his mind. Ted not speaking showed that he didn't need to justify his reasoning, whereas before, he was almost speaking to mask the very idea that he didn't want to, and couldn't admit that he wanted to go home. This was him being content with the understanding that his time was done. With Rebecca even saying how she was going to make him one of the highest paid coaches in the league, it showed his priorities and where they were. Home and being with his family was priceless, something that he wasn't prepared to give up for anything. The space that Rebecca had to speak. So if one person isn't speaking, that means that another person is doing all of it, and that individual was Rebecca. One of the first times that we saw Rebecca in the finale, she mentioned how she wasn't prepared to talk about Ted leaving, but on this occasion, she opened up the conversation by saying that she was finally ready, showing just how hard it was for her to pluck up the courage to speak to Ted. All of the emotion that was transferred across the screen came from Rebecca in this scene, because I feel she was emitting her emotions so clearly. But she also represented us as the viewers of the show, wanting the show to continue and for it to not end. With Ted not speaking, it enabled lots of room for Rebecca to voice what she wanted to say, and also pauses where silence spoke more than what words could possibly ever do, allowing the space for the emotions to flourish and for us to receive them. We heard here just how much Rebecca saw the both of them as a pair when it came to the club, and she stressed the importance of how much Ted meant to her, and that Ted was essentially what the club is. She felt as though Ted represented more than what the club was. The space in the conversation gave Ted an opportunity to answer, but the fact that he didn't say anything was what meant that Rebecca went off on what she wanted to say, and was trying to frame it like a positive thing, ultimately finishing off with the most basic of questions: would you please stay? Showing that all of the words that she said weren't half as valuable as just simply asking the question. With a tear in her eye and her giving into the words that she was saying because she was upset, it painted the mood for the entire episode and showed just how much Ted meant to her and had helped her over the years. It was such a beautiful moment. The framing of the scene. One thing that was beautiful about this scene was the framing of it, and the pacing that it had in the gradual creeping in closer to Ted, right up until the point of him uttering those first 3 words, which confirmed that he was going to be leaving for good. What started as him alone in the stands of a 25,000-seater stadium, we saw the amount of space that was present around both himself and Rebecca once she entered, almost showing us the amount of room that was present in the conversation that she was having. It almost made the conversation feel a lot more intimate and stressed the importance. Sitting in 2 seats directly next to each other in a stadium that seated around 24,998 more. The frame of the scene slowly got closer and closer with Rebecca speaking, switching from side to side, until she ultimately asked the question, "You already know your answer, don't you?" To which Ted responded with, "I do, yeah." And then from there, the camera then started cutting backwards again, until it ultimately finished with a wide shot of the stadium, highlighting the space yet again. It had such great pacing and rhythm to it that really complemented what was being said and the lack of what was being said by Ted, drawing us into his first few words that held such importance, and then allowing us to slowly move back as the revelation was confirmed. Why it was so powerful. The reason that this moment was so powerful was because it was the moment where it really sunk into Rebecca's mind what was going to be happening, and that she was going to have to say goodbye to Ted, the person that had quite literally been there for her over the past few years. The person who was hired as a way of getting back at Rupert was now somebody who she cared for deeply, and she wasn't prepared to say goodbye to. It was also powerful on the other seat in the stadium because it was the first time that we saw that Ted was content with the fact that he was leaving, and that he was truly owning the decision that he made to go back to the States. So much so that he felt as though he didn't need to utter a word or justify his actions. It was an extremely personal, intimate scene that brought us in and then pushed us back to the edge of the stadium, almost as if we were a fly on the wall in the conversation. This was just one piece of brilliance from the creators of the show, and the 2 performers in this scene too. One that allowed the ending to hit even harder when Rebecca was at the airport, as in this scene she didn't thank Ted like she did later on, which meant that the feelings that she had were even more built up inside of her. This is a show that is definitely going to be missed. It was a master at drawing out emotion from a viewer during a scene, and it's one of the only comedies where I feel that the audience member ends up shedding more tears than laughing out loud. This was a beautiful moment, and one that definitely stood out in the entire final season. So, there you have it, why this Ted Lasso moment was so powerful in the finale. If you want to see more videos such as endings explained, theories and predictions and character breakdowns, then click on the I button, or alternatively you can head over to my channel where you'll find them all. If you'd like to give me a show or movie that you'd like me to review, then head over to my Twitter, @brainpilot_, and tweet me what show or movie you'd like me to review next. And finally, if you'd like to see what I rate the latest movies that don't quite make the cut to getting a dedicated video, then head over to my Letterboxd profile. It's where I rate the latest releases in real time. What did you think of the finale? Leave a comment down below, and don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.